It is 170,000 years ago. You are a human, barely recognizable as one, but still. You wake up, you stretch. You look out at the African savanna, and at absolutely no point do you think, you know what would really complete this morning? Pants, and yet here we are. Billions of people every single morning putting on pants. Now, because that sounds intentional, have been wearing for 3 days straight, and you are calling it loungewear, skirts, or whatever that thing is that is technically pajamas, but here is the truly insane part. We actually arrest people for not wearing clothes. The state will intervene if you are too naked. We built an entire legal system around the concept of please put something on. But why? When did it start? And why did we do it when basically every other animal on the planet just did not? Dogs do not wear clothes. Wolves do not wear clothes. The elephant, objectively smarter than most people you went to high school with, has never once thought I need a jacket for this. The answer involves a timeline that makes no sense, a discovery that rewrites human history, and, I promise this is real, lice. Stick with it. Here is something nobody talks about enough. Humans are basically the only large mammals on Earth that are nearly hairless. Stop and think about that zoologically for a second. Gorillas, covered. Chimpanzees, covered. Bears, lions, wolves, horses, elephants, hippos, all of them across wildly different climates, walking around in full fur coats. And then there is us, standing in the middle of all this. Biodiversity. Smooth. Patchy. Weirdly pink in some places. Sporting an evolutionary look that says, I used to have fur, but I made some choices. Scientists believe we lost our fur for a very specific reason, as our ancestors moved from forests to open grasslands and started running long distances to hunt. Thick fur became a massive liability. You would overheat, slow down, and collapse before catching what you were chasing. So over hundreds of thousands of years, we shed the fur and replaced it with something genuinely insane, 2 to 4 million sweat glands. We are elite sweating machines, professional grade, world-class moisture emitters, incredible in summer, catastrophic at -40 with nothing but your wits and a rock. Here is where the story gets genuinely strange, and here is where lice come in. Researchers at the University of Florida decided to map the evolutionary history of human lice. Humans have 2 main types of lice, head lice, which live in your hair, and body lice, which live specifically in clothing, in the seams, in the folds, in the fabric. 2 genetically distinct populations. And body lice evolved from head lice at one specific moment in history. Here is why that matters enormously. Body lice cannot survive on bare human skin. They need fabric. They need the warmth and shelter that clothing provides. So the moment body lice split from head lice, that is essentially the moment, humans started wearing clothes, consistently enough to create a new ecological niche for a parasite. Researchers found that body lice diverged from head lice somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Let that sit. A parasitic insect, one of the most hated creatures in human history, the thing that causes mass panic in elementary schools, accidentally preserved the earliest evidence of human fashion. The lice knew when we got dressed before we did. They were there. They adapted. They moved in. That is either beautiful or deeply horrifying, probably both. So we have established that clothing predates the migration out of Africa by tens of thousands of years, which means cold weather cannot be the original reason. So what was it? Theory 1, basic physical protection, not from cold. From sun, insects, thorns, sharp rocks, and abrasion. If you are walking through tall grass, tracking animals across rocky terrain all day, a basic wrap of animal hide creates a meaningful barrier between your skin and everything that wants to scratch, bite, or burn it. Not glamorous, not philosophically interesting, but it probably kept early humans alive significantly longer. Sometimes the boring answer is the right one. Theory 2, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting, social signaling. Humans are obsessed with hierarchy in a way that goes bone deep. We are constantly communicating who we are, what group we belong to, what status we hold. Evidence shows our ancestors were using pigments like ochre for body decoration as far back as 200,000 years ago. That is before clothes even existed. We were painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. The jump from painting your skin to wearing a particular hide in a particular way is not a large cognitive leap. And once that hide is on, you start thinking. Is this the hide of something powerful? Did I kill it myself? Does wearing it say something about me? Welcome to the very first fashion industry, a small band of early humans arguing about who gets to wear the leopard skin. For most of early human history, clothing probably looked rough. A skin draped over the shoulders, held in place with twisted sinew. Functional, ungainly. The prehistoric equivalent of wearing a bin bag. Gets the job done, but nobody is winning any awards. Then around 50,000 years ago, something changed. Researchers started finding bone needles, not just pointed. Tools for punching holes, actual needles with tiny eyes through them. Clearly designed for threading sinew and stitching material together with precision. Fitted clothing, sewn seams, garments shaped to the body. The oldest confirmed needle with a proper eye was found in Denisova cave in Siberia, dating back approximately 50,000 years, made from the hollow bone of a bird. This object represents a cognitive leap that is almost impossible to overstate. Someone looked at a sliver of bone, envisioned a tool that did not yet exist, figured out how to bore a clean hole without splitting it, and used the result to join two pieces of material with a controlled, repeatable stitch. That is not survival instinct. That is engineering. That is design thinking. And in Siberia 50,000 years ago, without properly fitted clothing, you cannot survive. Here is something that often gets left out of the clothing origin story, mostly because it complicates the neat. Modern humans invented everything. Narrative. Neanderthals were also making and wearing clothes, and they were doing it well before they ever met us. We have found substantial evidence of Neanderthals, systematically processing animal hides, scraping bones in patterns, consistent with hide preparation, using stone tools designed for working leather. There is also anatomical evidence that Neanderthals had physical adaptations to cold, stockier bodies, shorter limbs, different fat distribution. Clothes were not optional for them. And then there are the Denisovans, the mysterious third human lineage we only discovered in 2010 from a single finger bone. In the same cave as the needle, researchers found pierced ornaments, suggesting they were already thinking about what they wore and how it looked. Multiple human species, completely different environments, the exact same solution, which raises a genuinely unsettling question. Is clothing a human thing, or is it simply what any sufficiently intelligent, cold enough, social enough creature eventually figures out? Here is the truly strange thing. If clothes were purely practical, every culture across history would converge on the most thermally efficient solution and just stay there forever. Thick hides in the Arctic, light plant fiber in the tropics, same shapes. Total standardization? Done. That is categorically not what happened. What happened is that humans immediately and universally made clothing mean something. In every culture we have records of, clothing carries symbolic weight far beyond its physical function. Priests wore different things than warriors. Rulers wore things nobody else was allowed to touch. The dead were buried in specific garments. Ceremonies required specific dress that would be absurd anywhere else. Some of the oldest textile fragments ever found were already dyed in multiple colors. Someone tens of thousands of years ago looked at a perfectly functional piece of woven material and thought, this needs to be a different color. Not because it would keep them warmer, because it would mean something different. Because it would say something. This is the fundamental strangeness of human clothing. We use it as language. I belong to this group. I hold this rank. I am mourning. I am celebrating. I am sacred. No other animal does this. Even if warmth was not the original reason for clothes, it became survival critical very fast. Between 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, Earth went through brutal glacial cycles. Global temperatures collapsed. Ice sheets expanded dramatically. Large portions of Africa became hyperarid. Lakes dried up. Food sources vanished. The human population may have crashed to between 10,000 and 30,000 individuals. We nearly went extinct. We came astonishingly close to just not existing as a species before we had even properly gotten started. For the survivors, and especially the groups that eventually pushed north into Europe and east into Central Asia, clothing was no longer a social signal or a comfort. It was the thin line between life and death. A properly constructed garment traps warm air against the body. It protects the wrists and neck, where blood runs closest to the surface and heat escapes fastest. Those with the needle, the thread, the knowledge, they made it through. They had children. Those children learned the same skills, and that knowledge, carried forward across generations, is part of the reason modern humans reached every continent on Earth. There is one more transition in this story worth knowing: the shift from animal hides to woven plant fibers. Animal hides are warm, durable, and water-resistant. They are also heavy, stiff, difficult to clean, and you need to kill something to get them. At some point, humans started working with plant fibers, spinning them into thread, weaving them into fabric. The oldest known twisted plant fiber was found in a cave in the Republic of Georgia, dating to roughly 30,000 years ago. Already dyed in multiple colors, already decorative, already communicating something beyond basic function. By the time of the Neolithic agricultural revolution, roughly 10,000 years ago, textile production had become a core technology of civilization. Flax for linen, wool from domesticated sheep, eventually cotton and silk. And with textiles came the wardrobe, clothing specialized for different purposes. Winter cloak, summer wrap, ritual garment, work garment. Clothing is a complete system of expression. The textile industry was one of the greatest economic forces in the ancient world. Trade routes were built on it. Empires were financed by it. Wars were fought for it. Silk alone reshaped the political geography of half the world, all from a cold, naked primate with a piece of bone. So why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? The honest answer is, for all the reasons in overlapping waves. It started with practical protection, something between the skin and the thorns and the sun and the biting things. It evolved almost immediately into social signaling, a way of saying something about who you are. It became a survival technology when the climate turned hostile, and it became an art form, an industry, a language, and an identity as human culture grew more complex. Think about what you are wearing right now. You made choices, conscious and unconscious, about what to put on today. And those choices reflect who you are, how you feel, what group you belong to, what image of yourself you are presenting to the world. You are doing exactly what that person on the African savannah was doing, wrapped in ochre-stained hide, figuring out how to signal something about themselves to the people around the same fire. 170,000 years of human history, and what connects you to them directly, without interruption, is the simple fact that you got dressed this morning. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. Would you go back in time and live completely naked? Let me know in the comments. If this kind of deep history is what you are here for, subscribe. More is coming.